Hello and welcome to the latest instalment in the Financial Times Business of F1 series. As we approach the midway point in the season, events off track have been as highly charged as on it, and there's much to discuss. I'm delighted to welcome a couple of key players from the world of Formula One. Paul Hembry is Motorsport Director of Pirelli, the sole tyre supplier, which has come in and shaken up the racing in Formula One in the last couple of years. And Zach Brown from JMI is the guru of F1 sponsorship. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Starting out with the big picture first, if I may. Formula One is poised to float on the Singapore Stock Exchange, but market conditions obviously volatile, so it's been postponed. And of course, we've also got a Euro crisis weighing heavy on big commercial decisions. Can I ask you both how you see the next few years for Formula One? Start with Paul.
Well, you're right. I mean, the European situation is a tough one. I mean, we've already seen a big effect on the downturn in the automotive market in Europe. I mean, fortunately, we are a global business, and so is Formula One. So, when we are looking at our longer term investment and presence in Formula One, we are taking a global view.
And Zach, I mean, obviously that is a serious consideration for Formula One. Its globalness might be the thing that would see it through the turbulence, shall we say, of European market conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the entire world doesn't come to an end. We've certainly recognized certain parts of the world are struggling more than others, but Formula One has done a fantastic job of getting into these new markets, which companies are still investing substantially in. About 1/3 of the schedule now is Asia Pac, and a lot of our clients are coming into Formula One for Asia Pac and not Europe or America and maybe some of the traditional markets. So I think as long as it remains global, which it certainly will, it continues to add new markets like India, Russia's coming up. I think Formula One will be able to sustain itself through this economic crisis.
Paul, obviously we're 18 months now into Pirelli's return to Formula One after 20 years away. It's obviously a big financial commitment, but sum up in your approach to the sport and what Formula One does for Pirelli.
Well, I guess there's a lot of things. I mean, the global exposure is one you just mentioned. There is whatever sport will give you the global exposure every year that Formula One does. We couldn't find that. We're in the automotive business, so there's obviously a natural link with motorsport. But I think also it's we're also finding that we're influencing the buyer, which is what we wanted to try and find out, and we now know that our presence in Formula One is having actual impact on the buying decisions of the end consumers. So that's a good link, and we're also growing in the markets that Zach's just mentioned. APAC, we're going into South America more and more. Russia's a major market that's coming up for us on the map. So Formula One is mapping really where our business expansion's going as well.
Now, you've obviously shaken up the racing, as I was saying, with tyres that have to be changed every 2 or 3 times in a race, and that mixes up the order quite a lot. But what would you like to see Formula One do to improve itself as a show and also as a business?
Well, the show, we have to continue what we're doing this year. I think this year you've seen some great racing for a variety of features of the technical changes and a little bit the tyres as well. We think we've brought along something a little bit different with that. We know the public wants entertaining. The classical European race audience is not the future audience for Formula One. We're going into China where we're competing with football. We're going to the USA again. We're competing with many other huge sports over there. So you've got to make sure that the public that's watching it of course, is enjoying the product that we're doing.
Now, Zach, you work obviously with a lot of brands across different sectors. What are they saying to you about the sport at the moment? Are we seeing any cutbacks given the market conditions around the world, and any threats of any sponsor withdrawals?
I'm not seeing many sponsors withdraw, which is very encouraging. I think that shows the strength of Formula One. Clearly, most companies are cutting back, but what we're seeing is they're not cutting back on their Formula One expenditure, which I think then means as they review, which all companies constantly review their sponsorship. Vodafone has just announced that, and people shouldn't read into that too much because it's a natural cycle, just as Paul and Pirelli would do, review their spends. But I think what we're seeing is Formula One always comes out at the top or near the top as a great payback.
And Zach, there's always a lot of wheeling and dealing going on between teams and the governing body and Bernie Ecclestone in the background. Obviously, the key piece of business that needs to get done before any flotation is the Concord Agreement, the agreement that binds all the parties in for 8 years. Now, we know that some of the teams, most of the teams, have signed on to commercial arrangements, but getting that Concord Agreement seems to be elusive at the moment. What are you hearing about that? Is that going to get done?
Yeah, it'll definitely get done. It always has, but as historically it gets quite dramatic and plays out in the media and can get to various degrees of threats at times. So ultimately, yes, it'll get done. It always does. I think it's like any sport. If you look around the world, anytime kind of the labor or the commercial agreements come up, they get on the threats of boycotts and breakaways and things of that nature, because there's a lot of money at stake, and this is the opportunity for everyone to cut their new deal for the foreseeable future, whether they do it for 5, 7, or 10 years. So very confident it'll get done, but also very confident we'll see some headlines in the FT with some drama between now and then.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in to talk to us and sharing your thoughts. And you can read plenty more about the business of Formula One on our website, www.ft.com/F1.